Welcome to week 4 of Polarathon. Well, everyone, we have gone from last week we had a night that was minus 43 Celsius, not including the wind chill. I think the wind chill was minus 58 or something stupid like that. To today where it is melting enough that I can make snowballs. This is Saskatchewan. Oh my gosh, the weather extremes are crazy around here. Anyway, it is week 4, the final week of Polarathon, so I thought I would let you guys know what we have to finish this week. So, in order to finish all my prompts, I'll show you where I'm at. So, I have the Pierre Burton book, and I have now got, as of last night, 296 pages into it. And it is a 500 and, well, let's see here, not including all the notes at the end. It is just including the afterword. We'll include that. We're looking at 631. So I'm almost halfway. So I have a lot of this to read this week. I do have to read this funny thing to you guys though. So this is talking about an explorer. His name was Collinson, and he had gone exploring and spent 5 winters in the Arctic, and 5 winters away from England. He explored a bunch of the Arctic and he basically circumnavigated the globe. But he wasn't a guy who was very ambitious, he wouldn't take any chances. And so every time that he got somewhere, somebody else had already found it. So he was recovering old ground instead of finding anything new. And it said that his reception was chilly, not because of these failures, which could be understandable, but because he was at odds with his officers. At one time or another, all had been under arrest. 2 were still confined. 1, Francis Sked, for the past 3 years. And then, so Collinson wanted this guy to be court-martialed, but the Admiralty declined. They said they were used to this sort of problem. It's understandable that after more than 4 years cooped up on a crowded ship, even disciplined naval men would feel the tension. His history excused Collinson on these grounds, and then his brother, who published his journal, or who edited his journal, added in that it could possibly be because of scurvy and those things that affect the mind and all of that. But I like this. So this brotherly assessment scarcely absolves Collinson. For one thing, his bitterness did not dissipate on the return journey round Africa's southern tip, as might be expected, but lingered on after the completion of the voyage. For another, too many of his officers were at loggerheads with their commander. In fact, the trouble aboard the Enterprise began long before the Arctic night closed in, as the journal of the second ice master, Sked, makes clear. Through Sked's admittedly biased eyes, Collinson emerges as a super cautious commander, hesitant to take the slightest chance, always prepared to retreat when he might have gone forward in triumph, lackadaisical in pressing the Franklin search, and sometimes too drunk to handle the ship. Sked felt so strongly that when Collinson's journal was published, he scribbled angry marginal notes throughout his copy. Bosh! Not true. Lies. Absurd statement. What an excuse. Drunk. I would love to see that guy's annotations on that journal. That just made me laugh so hard. Anyway, so I've still got about half of that to go. So got lots of work to do on that. Whoops. Got to put my bookmark back in here. And then I actually have made quite a bit of progress now on The Shadow of the Gods, but I still have a lot to read yet. But I'm 96 pages in now. I'm loving this one. It is so good. I love John Gwynn's writing. And I honestly, if there was a fantasy series that was written and had a big sign on it saying, Rhonda, this is for you, it would be this one, I think, because I love anything Norse inspired and anything where the gods and the creatures are real. Like I actually have a book. This refers to the Vaesen, which were the Scandinavian mythological creatures, and they're real in here. And I actually have a book that my sister got me for Christmas one year. It's an illustrated guide to all the Scandinavian Vaesen, and I love that kind of stuff. So this one I'm really, really excited to keep going on. And I have to finish If We Were Villains, where I am now 233 pages in. So getting fairly close to the end. This one is a 358. So a little over 100 pages left. And I'm starting to really, really enjoy this one. Like I say, the difference with this one for me is that the characters are actually really likable. So and I didn't like the guy who died, so that helps. But anyways, so I've got to read that one. And then I have an option. It depends on how this week goes. If I get through all of those in decent time, then I had on my list The Devil in the Dark Water by Stuart Turton for my blue cover. But this is a rather large book as well. And I still have quite a bit to go on those ones because it's been going slower than I'd hoped. So if I don't get through those in time to read this one, I can take my blue cover from The Arctic Grail by Pierre Burton. I was using this one for the foiled cover, but I can also use it for the blue cover if I need to. So chances are that's what's going to happen is I'll use this one for the blue cover as well. And then I will just read The Devil in the Dark Water next week in March, because this one is for my buzzword reading prompt for water words. So, and I'm really, really looking forward to reading that one. But if I can get to it, I will. If I can't, I have the backup for my blue cover. So that's the plan for the week. I'm going to be doing a bit of writing today. I need to keep editing my novel. And I had terrible time sleeping last night. I don't think I fell asleep till after 6:30 in the morning, but my brain was working through some issues in my novel. So I'm going to go put that to use right now and do a little bit more editing. And then I'm going to spend most of my weekend reading is the plan, because I am going to have a bit of a busier week later. So I want to spend quite a bit of time this weekend reading. So I will see you when I make a little bit more progress. Let's talk some progress. I have made it further into The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I'm now on page 162, and I'm really enjoying this book. I love his writing. It is so good. There's been several times already in the first 160 pages where he has had me on the edge of my seat. My favorite character so far, I like following Varg's point of view. There's something about I've always kind of had a soft spot for characters who were slaves, or thralls in this case, is the word that was used in Old Norse times, and escape and then make something of themselves. I've always had a real weak spot for characters like that. So Varg is kind of my favorite character. The other thing that I love about this is that there's no specific gender roles that you have to deal with, because there's female warriors and there's male warriors, and the females are so badass. And I really like that, because you're not restricted to historical gender roles like you would be if you were writing historical fiction based off of the Viking times or whatever. And I'm really enjoying these badass women, like Orca. She is, you want to talk about female rage. Yeah. And then there's Elvar, who is another really badass woman. And I'm really enjoying that. And even like the community around where Orca and Thorkill live, there's the Jarl who rules their area is a woman, which I find really, really interesting. I love that he decided to do that, because it takes gender roles and just throws them out the window. And I'm really enjoying that about the book. So yeah, and I love his writing, and I am really, really, really happy with this one. And then, again, making more progress on the Pierre Berton book. I have now gotten to the final expedition that is going to find out what happened to Franklin. And you're learning a lot in this section about how obsessed Lady Jane Franklin was with finding her husband. Although the levels, the what she would go to in order to get groups to go up there, get the Admiralty to send ships up there, all of that, you're really seeing what a tough woman she was and how she was not going to give up. And I find her quite interesting to read about. She is quite a character. And I think she single-handedly essentially turned John Franklin from just being a minor historical character into being an Arctic hero through her search for him. So that is a really interesting part of it. And so, yeah, I'm following that now. We're following McClintock's expedition up there. And then after that, we're going to start getting into, I believe, the search for the North Pole. So, and they have found the Northwest Passage now, but nobody has actually traveled through it. So that one is also going very, very well. I am enjoying that. And like I said before, I haven't started The Devil in the Dark Water yet by Stuart Turton. I'm not going to start this one until I finish these other two, in the hopes that perhaps because I know that if I don't get to this one, I can use the Arctic Grail for my blue cover. So as long as I can finish that one, which I still have quite a lot left, so I'm kind of focusing on that one and on the Shadow of the Gods. And I realized that I didn't mark off in my book here when I finished If We Were Villains. So I will mark that off in my book. I did finish this one, which was my black cover and my cozy, or not cozy, my black cover and my chilly prompt. It's not cozy, it's chilly. There is a good portion of this that is set in winter, so it works in that aspect for the chilly prompt, but also I figured, murder and everything could be considered chilly. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm not going to tell you guys much of my thoughts on this one, because I do have a Dark Academia vlog coming out where I will be talking in depth about this one. But overall, I enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. So let's go down to my table and I will mark some stuff off in the book. Sorry for the lighting. It's sun is setting, so it's kind of coming in through my window here. So I finished reading If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. And again, that one covers my black cover prompt. And that covers my chilly vibes. So now all I have left is the blue cover, which is possibly the Arctic Grail, snowy setting, polar fantasy, Arctic adventure, foiled cover, and nonfiction. And those will all be covered by the last 2 books. So I only have 6 more to go. And I will have completed Polarathon. And I have, let's see, including today, I have 5 days to finish. So we will push ourselves and see what we can do. In the weird twist that is our weather, we went from minus 40 degrees last week to now it is above freezing and melting everything in the course of a few days. Welcome to Saskatchewan weather. Anyway, last night I read quite a bit on the Pierre Burton book. I got to where they discovered what happened to the Franklin expedition, which was really interesting. However much they were able to discover back then. But after I'm done reading this during Polarathon here, I want to go and do a little bit of online research because I know, I can't remember how long ago it was. It wasn't terribly long ago, maybe within the last 10 years, because this book was published in 1988. But I think it was in the last 10 years, they had the technology now to go underwater in water that cold and to actually find and go inside. Can't remember whether it was the Erebus or the Terror, whichever one was it that actually sunk rather than the other one which was right along shore and then ended up getting taken apart for wood by the people who lived there. So, but I know they were able to go with underwater cameras and do some searching down in the ship and possibly find out a little bit more about what happened. So I definitely want to research some of that after I'm done. I remember seeing a video one time with that in it. So, but just watering the animals, gonna go have something to eat. Gonna do a bunch of writing today because it's one of my work days. And then hopefully do a bunch of reading tonight. And I got quite a few pages still to get through this week and not a lot of week left to do it. So I will catch you guys later. Hopefully I will finish a book or two here pretty soon. Sorry for the lighting. It's a little bit late at night, but week 4 of Polarathon is done, and I have a few things to report. So the last 2 books that I had to finish were The Arctic Grail by Pierre Burton and The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, and I'm happy to say I completed both. So let's talk about this one first. The Arctic Grail by Pierre Burton. I gave this one 5 stars, definitely. It was so good. I love his writing style so much. I know I've said this a million times, but I really do. He can take any period of history and just make it come alive. I also really enjoyed the things that he brought up in here about colonization, about colonialism, about the treatment of the First Nations people who lived in these areas, about the way that they were treated and the way that the white explorers refused to learn from them and those sorts of things. He really goes in depth into that in here. There's just a couple of things that I wanted to mention that I had marked that I found really interesting and thought that you guys might find interesting as well. Yeah, this was talking about the Greely expedition that had been trying to get to the North Pole, and then they ended up, a lot of them starved to death. This is talking about they'd spent a whole long winter up there with barely anything to eat, and then this was mid-March the next day, or mid-March the next day. This was mid-March the next year, and they were trying to figure out if they were going to be able to get to where there were maybe some food caches or even to where they could hunt, but they were running out of strength. And this was the commander, Greely. He said, this is something that he wrote in his journal, which I just thought was really interesting and thought-provoking. He said, "It drives me almost insane to face the future. It is not the end that affrights anyone, but the road to be traveled to reach that goal. To die is easy. It is only hard to strive, to endure, to live." I thought that was a really thought-provoking quote. I'd like to give that one even more thought because it was definitely a thought-provoking one. And then the other thing I wanted to read to you guys was, okay, yeah, this was interesting. So I found that the one explorer who I actually really liked reading about and really enjoyed him as a person was Roald Amundsen. He was the Norwegian explorer who first did the Northwest Passage, actually went through it. And just reading about him, you can see why he was successful where a lot of these other guys failed. When they got to the one area there, he actually spent, was it 2 years? Yeah, I think it was 2 years he spent learning from the Netsilik people, learning how to build snow houses, learning how to fight frostbite, learning how to survive and what clothes to wear and everything. And his crew learned from these people who actually lived in the area. And I found that was so much different than so many of these other white explorers. And this was just talking about the difference, the clear difference between why he succeeded and people like Commander Robert Scott, who at the same time was down in Antarctica, was just about dying, And it says, talking about Roald Amundsen, and the First Nations people, the Netsilik. He approached them with humility and the belief that they had a great deal to teach him. Commander Robert Scott and his men were in the Antarctic on their first expedition at the same time, stubbornly man-hauling 240-pound loads on heavy sledges in the old British naval tradition, starving and freezing because of improper clothing and inadequate food. Amundsen, meanwhile, was flourishing in a similar environment. Here on King William Island, where Franklin's followers had perished, he was honing the techniques that would make it possible for him to conquer the South Pole and live to tell about it. The Eskimos became his teachers, and Amundsen and his comrades were willing pupils. And that just shows you the huge difference in why they succeeded. And then it becomes really exceptionally clear when you start reading about the difference between him and Robert Peary, who was trying to get to the North Pole at the same time. And he was just using the First Nations people. He learned from them, sort of, but he didn't look at them as people. He didn't look at them as worth his time. They were beneath him, and it just is so interesting to read about the different ways that the explorers handled things, and how the ones who really learned from the First Nations people actually were the ones who did well, but also just seeing the difference in how the people were treated and all of that. And yeah, it was a very, very good book. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommend any of his books. And so yeah, I can mark some stuff off in my journal about that one, which I will do in a minute. And then the other one, which also got 5 stars from me because it was epic, is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This is his Norse-inspired saga, as you know, and I just have been eating this up. I absolutely love his writing style. I love the characters in these books, or in this book. I love everything about it. It was just so perfectly designed for Rhonda. I absolutely fell in love with this book. So I'm really looking forward to reading the other two. I bought the second one, and I actually have the third one on order already. So looking forward to that. So I will take you guys down to my table, and we'll cross off the rest of the Polarathon prompts, and then I'll come back and say goodbye. Okay, so I can mark off that I read The Arctic Grail by Pierre Burton, and that I read The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. And now I didn't get to this one here, but I was able to use blue cover. I was able to use The Arctic Grail for my blue cover. So, and that was all that one was going to be. So let's cross them off. So for the Pierre Burton one, we have our nonfiction, our Arctic Adventure, and our foiled cover, and our blue cover. And then for the Shadow of the Gods, that gives us our polar fantasy. So a lot of parts of it take place in the snow. And it gives us our snowy setting. So there you have it. We were able to color in all the squares for Polarathon. Okay. Welcome to week 4 of Polarathon.
You said you can't aim!
Well, you're close enough that I can sort of aim.
You got the camera the first one! Yes!
Oh.
But don't move closer!
Did it look good?
I don't know! I was closing my eyes so I didn't get smacked!
Oh, I thought you said you were going to hold the camera lower.
Okay, try it again.
Welcome to week 4 of Polarathon. I missed it. Oh, my hands are getting cold.
Okay.
Welcome to week 4 of Polarathon.
You got it.